Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story, entitled Principal Yells at Disabled Kid for Being Late to Class. Okay, so I have been thinking of a time where I have experienced an entitled person, and I think I had a perfect story. Backstory: I have a physical disability called arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, and I use a wheelchair to get around school because I get tired a little more frequently than other people with no disability. Plus, it is just more convenient for me. At the time of the story, I was in the 7th grade. I'm also supposed to leave about 5 minutes early from each class to allow myself enough time to get to the next before the halls get filled. Principals and staff are aware of this and are fine with it. The story. So this one day I was in my band class, which was first period for me. That day I didn't pay attention to the time and I was a little late getting out of class. So I talked to the band directors and we decided the best thing for me to do is to pull over in the cafeteria. It's right outside the band room. I wait for the halls to clear a little bit so I can continue down the hall to my class. One of my directors, who we will call Mr. Band, called the math teacher and told him I will be a few minutes late. And Mr. Math, the math teacher, said it was fine and he understood. The head principal, let's call him Mr. Principal, came walking down the halls to make sure everyone was going where they were supposed to. And he happened to see me. I was sitting in my wheelchair inside the cafeteria, and Mr. Principal went out of his way to come in and yell at me. He was like, "Why are you not going to class?" I said I wasn't paying attention and the time flew by, and the bell ended up ringing before I left, sir. At this point, Mr. Principal was even angrier, and he almost ended up trying to write me up for detention. He replied back to me, "That is no reason to be sitting here waiting. Just go on to class." I was honestly really stressed because I have never been in a situation like this before. In my mind, I was trying to figure out what I should do. Some of the thoughts I had include, should I risk getting stuck in the halls and either getting ran over myself or run someone else over? And Mr. Principal, you are supposed to be fine with this. What is going on? I replied, "Well, sir, I talked to Mr. Bend and we determined it will be the best thing for me to wait for the halls to get cleared. Mr. Bend even messaged Mr. Mass, and Mr. Mass agreed with us." And you could tell Mr. Principal was getting angrier and angrier by the second. "Well, I don't care what your teachers say. You need to get in class right now," he yelled at me. By this time, the second bell has already rung and class already began. The halls were clear and I was about ready to go. I said, "Okay then. But you do realize back a few months ago when we all had a meeting discussing what is best for me, and you said it is fine if I'm a few minutes late to class. You were the one who said that. It's not like you disagreed." "Listen here. If you don't get up to math right now, you will get in-school suspension," he yelled again. "Okay, fine. I will leave right now. See you soon, Mr. Principal," I said while trying to hold back tears. "You are not going anywhere until I say you can," he stated. "Sir, you literally just said that if you don't get to class right now, you will have in-school suspension." I was legit about to punch that stupid principal right in the face, or ram into him with a 50-pound wheelchair along with a 100-pound human in it. I was so frustrated. "Oh yeah? Huh? Did I say that? Whatever, I'm still not done talking to you. If you actually paid attention to time, you could have avoided this whole situation." "Well, sir, I'm pretty sure we all make mistakes and get a few minutes behind sometimes." "Okay, fine. Get to class. If I see you sitting in the halls waiting ever again, you will be in big trouble." So I went on to math class. When I got there, Mr. Math said, "Well, hey there. Glad to see you. I heard you were going to be a few minutes late and that is fine. But class has been in session for about 10 minutes now. How about I talk to you after class? Alright, that's fine, Mr. Mass. So I sat in Mass and listened to Mr. Mass teach for about 30 minutes. Then he let us have some time to work on the assignment. Towards the end of the class, Mr. Mass called me back. Why were you so late to class today? I knew you were going to be a few minutes late, but that was quite a long time. Well, it's a long story, but basically Mr. Principal saw me waiting in the cafeteria for the other kids to get by, so I didn't get stuck behind so many kids and came over to me. And Mr. Principal was not very happy that I was late. Is that so? Well, I'm so sorry, I completely understand. My math teacher was obviously done with this principal. He gathered other teachers, and they reported the principal for his abusive behavior towards both the teachers and students. The Board of Education ended up getting rid of Mr. Principal, and one of the assistant principals took his place. And they hired Mr. Math Teacher as one of the new assistants. I am so happy that that principal got fired. Seriously, no one at the school liked him. Next story. Not allowed in the bakery I work in. I'm 18 and have worked in my hometown bakery/shop since I was 16. It is a cute little town where everyone practically knows everyone. And there are mostly sweet old men and ladies walking their dogs or kids running around to collect stickers from the local library. I've lived here my whole life, and though I'm looking at moving for university this year, it's still a wholesome little town. Anyway, this takes place during the corona pandemic, but shortly after the first initial lockdown in England, we are considered an essential business because we sell milk and bread, as well as flour at the time. We have to wear masks at our jobs and advise our customers to wear masks too, though we're not supposed to tell them specifically to wear one. I still wasn't back at college at that time, so I was asked to help out a few hours here and there with my boss and co-worker, because one employee was still furloughed for the time being. I had to say yes, and got a little extra money under my belt. However, because of our low stock at the big bakery which supplied all of our food to cook and bread to sell, we didn't get a lot of sandwich fillings, and often had to go to the local shop right next door in order to pick up extra butter, lettuce, and so on. This one fateful day we had run out of butter as we recently started remaking bacon baps in the morning, and the builders were coming in herds. So my boss asked me to take a few pounds out of the till, go get some butter, then get the receipt and yada yada yada. I was used to doing this and did not complain. I took my work apron off and threw my jacket on because man, it was freezing. Got the butter, moving on. As I go to walk back into the bakery, this woman sticks out her foot by the door and stops me. I'm silently praying that it is not a Karen, and luckily it isn't. But she's not far off. Yes? It's 2 customers at a time, and I was here first. For work we have to wear black trousers and black button-up, because we're on our face all day. All of us wear leggings and trainers. Paired with my hoodie, I did not look like I worked there. So I understand the confusion. I know it's 2 people at a time. I'm just trying to. I was here first. I try going around her again and she moves closer to the door. I have really bad anxiety, and the virus has made me really paranoid about people near me I don't know. So to keep myself from panicking, and to keep her unmasked self away from me, I stepped back. My boss hadn't noticed us as she didn't know I was back from the shops. I was busy serving this mom and her screaming child as well as a builder. I gave up by this point, and as the second person left I quickly darted in and sorted my apron out again. Just in time to see the lady walk in ready to throw hands. My boss had gone to do paperwork as there were only us 2, and there were a lot to do. I smirked under my mask. Me rather sweetly say, "Hello, how can I help you today?" And the lady stands there for a moment almost dumbfounded. And you guessed it, she wasn't wearing a mask. I knew she was about to throw a tantrum, so I made things even better. I call my boss's name and ask her, Did you want me to deliver the customer's bread on the way home from work? And my boss' response was a hearty yes please. And I turned back to finish serving the lady, who leaves without so much as a word. Despite 9 out of 10 of our customers being jerks, that was a good day to work in retail. I told my boss a story and we had a small laugh. She did wonder why I was standing outside with some butter. Next story. Karen declares war on my parents for cutting a tree down on their own property. I, 25 male, have been living away from home ever since graduating from college. My parents both retired recently, and last summer they decided to use some of the money they had saved up to finally build their dream retirement home in New Orleans, where they have been living for the past 10 years. I come from a very tight-knit family, so I still talk to my parents every week, and they were so excited when they said they had already picked out the location where they wanted the house built. It was an empty lot in a nice neighborhood where a house had been demolished not long before due to age, and the previous owner, who was pretty wealthy and owned numerous properties around the city, decided that the lot was worth more without the house on it. Anyway, my parents snapped it up as soon as it came on the market, but not long after construction began, they realized they were building their dream house right next to the lair of a wild Karen. The trouble started when my parents had to cut down a large oak tree that sat in the front of the lot. It was a real beauty too, one of those big southern live oaks. And although they didn't want to, they knew they had to remove it because it was in the way. No one likes to cut down a big beautiful tree, and believe me, if there was a way to avoid doing it without impeding the construction, my parents would have taken it. So they called a tree removal service, and the tree was soon gone. Well, a few days after the tree had been cut down, my dad was on the property talking to some of the construction guys and making sure everything is going smoothly. He was going back to her car when he saw a woman in her late 50s walk out of the house next door and head to her mailbox. My dad, let's call him John, is a pretty chill and laid-back guy who likes to be on good terms with everyone. So he walked over and introduced himself. "Hi," he said, holding out his hand. "My name is John, and my wife and I are going to be your neighbors once our house is finished. I just wanted to come over and say hi and introduce myself. It is so nice to meet you. What's your name?" Karen glanced at his extended hand, then looked up at my dad and glared at him. "My name is none of your business," she snapped. "I'm not going to shake your hand because of COVID. And even if there was no COVID, I still wouldn't shake your hands because you people ruined my life when you cut down my tree. I still can't believe how selfish you are. You should both be ashamed of yourselves." Needless to say, my dad was taken aback by this and pointed out that Karen already had a nice big oak tree in her backyard. But Karen ignored him and stalked back inside her house. She never explained why she thought she was the owner of the tree that had been cut down. Not once. And whenever my parents asked about it, she refused to answer. I guess it's just one of those things we'll never know. Like what really happened to the lost Roanoke colony or the fate of D.P. Cooper. My parents met some of their other neighbors later that day, including a nice elderly couple who lived in the other house next door to Karen's. And when my dad told them what happened, the neighbors said Karen was like that to everyone and no one in the neighborhood liked her. They also said that Karen had been nasty to them for a long time, and they were in the process of selling their house because they couldn't stand living next to her anymore. Karen soon began living up to her reputation. For months, whenever my parents would visit the house to see how construction was coming along, she'd find something to complain or confront them about. One time she said the construction workers were being too loud and threatened to call the police, even though it was the middle of the day. Another time she said that the construction company was using illegal immigrants as cheap labor and threatened to call ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and have the whole project shut down. My dad mentioned this to the owner of the company and the owner sent Karen a formal letter threatening a lawsuit if she tried. I don't know if there were any actual grounds for a lawsuit, but the threat must have worked because ICE never showed up. Oh, and then there was a time she tried to have my parents' car towed for illegal parking when they parked by the curb of their self-unfinished house. The first my parents knew about this was when the tow truck showed up. But the driver took one look at where my parents' car was parked and told Karen he'd send her a bill for wasting his time if she called him again. I could go on and on. Karen did everything she could think of to try and interfere. She was absolutely relentless in her crusade to avenge a tree she never even owned. Happily, the house was completed despite her best efforts, and my parents finally moved in not long after the holidays. My mom told me later that she caught Karen watching them bitterly from her window as they were taking some of their boxes inside. She was concerned that Karen might keep going and try something else. But I guess Karen was too busy wallowing in self-pity over her failure or something like that because things were actually quiet for a while. But a few weeks ago, things changed. New Orleans has had some really bad weather lately due to the winter storms that are battering much of the southern US right now. And one night, one of those storms was so powerful that it knocked over the tree in Karen's backyard. It missed falling onto her house, but it didn't miss falling onto her shiny new Jaguar and crushing it like a beer can. According to my folks, Karen did not discover what happened until the following morning, when she came outside and saw the pile of scrap metal that used to be her car. She threw back her head and let out a primal scream like something out of The Exorcist. She had to pay a tree removal service to get rid of the tree, and then she had to get a rental car too. Karen put her property up for sale and moved out not long afterward. Everyone in the neighborhood was glad to see her go, and my parents enjoyed watching her drive off into the sunset from the front porch of their amazing new house. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.